May I have your attention, please? If you haven't done so at this time, please silence all cell phones and pagers, and please sign in. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. This meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North 3rd Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020, and the time is 10:02 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Shawardi.
Here.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Here.
Commissioner Jeffers.
Here.
Commissioner Berger.
Here.
Commissioner Wood. Here. 5 present and a quorum.
Thank you. There being no old business to take up at this time, I'll now move to defer the reading and approval of the minutes of the past meetings, which is attached to our docket. We're going to defer that. I don't guess we need a motion for that, huh? We need a motion? All right. I'll make the motion that we defer the approval of minutes for this meeting.
Second.
Commissioner Berger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Wood. Yes. Commissioner Jeffers.
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi.
Yes. We'll now consider change orders.
Tanisha Malvo on behalf of Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 3,158 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 3,109 and place 49 in pending status. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve 3,109 change orders and place 49 in pending status per the staff recommendations.
Second.
Commissioner Berger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Wood.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers.
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi.
Yes. We'll now consider prior pending change orders.
Tanisha Malvo on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 16 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 14 and keep 2 remaining in pending status. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept staff recommendations and approve 14 of the 16 prior pending change orders. Second.
Commissioner Berger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Wood.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers.
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi.
Yes. We'll now consider tax sale cancellations.
Tanisha Malvo on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 3 tax sale cancellations. We have 2 in Ouachita Parish, reason being one was adjudicated in error due to incorrect address and the homestead was canceled in error. And the second one, the parcel was sold for 1% interest due to inter-office error. Also, the homestead exemption was canceled in error. We also have one in East Baton Rouge Parish, the reason being erroneously sold because it was a dual assessment. Staff requests approval of these 3 tax sale cancellations.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the 3 tax sale cancellations as recommended by staff.
Second?
Commissioner Berger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Wood.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers.
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi.
Yes. We'll now consider the approval of the 2020 tax roll for Vernon Parish.
Tanisha Malvo on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. We do have the tax roll, the 2020 tax roll for Vernon Parish. They have filed their electronic roll. We've received the abstract, the recaps, balance, public service recap balances. We also have the quietus, the letter from the legislative auditor, and their affidavit. Staff requests approval of the 2020 tax roll for Vernon Parish.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the Vernon Parish tax roll.
Second.
Commissioner Berger.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Yes.
Commissioner Wood.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers.
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi.
Yes. All right, this time I'll ask anybody who is planning on testifying this morning before the commission at the microphone to please stand up at your chair so that you can be sworn in as a witness.
All right. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Alicia Labat, I do.
Thank you. It is the Tax Commission's policy to accept all documents into the record that were timely pre-filed in accordance with the Commission's rules and regulations. This will be done at the conclusion of all hearings on today's docket. Accordingly, there is no need to formally offer or introduce the exhibits into the record during your appeal hearing. However, if you intend to object to the submission of any of the opposing parties' exhibits, you must notify the Commission at the start of your appeal hearing. As a reminder, this is an administrative hearing, and as such, the rules of evidence are relaxed. The Commission is inclined to review and consider all evidence submitted and to accept such evidence into the record. All right, the first item we'll take up this morning is the appeal of Devage LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22172-047. You're here for Devage?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Why don't you come on over to the microphone? If you can, try to talk as close to the microphone as you can, and try to talk louder than you normally would talk, because the mask does tend to muffle your voice, muffle the voice. So, and also, if you please just state your name for the record.
My name is Tim Dino. I'm a member of Devage LLC, which is the subject property landowner.
All right, and if you just go ahead and tell us about the property.
Subject property is land that's encumbered by a long-term lease to the owner of the building situated on the property. The land rent is fixed at $26,100 per year for the term of the lease, with no increases or escalations. The landowner, the Devage, is responsible for paying 100% of any and all ad valorem real property taxes assessed against the property, excluding the improvements. For 2019, the assessor valued the land at $350,000. The land was appraised on July 23rd, 2019 by the Orleans Parish Assessor's Appraiser for $408,900. When the assessor disregarded that value, the Board of Review's appraiser appraised the property for $435,000, a similar value. Once again, the assessor disregarded the second appraised value and more than doubled the land value to $877,600. And that's the reason for the appeal. At the recommendation of the Louisiana Tax Commission, the 2021 taxes were appealed. Chris Baker, the Board of Review's appraiser, valued the land at $475,000. And what I'm doing is reading the letter that accompanies my exhibits. If these three appraisers' opinions are not enough to determine the value, a look at capitalizing the net income to formulate an income approach would include the facts that the annual income is set at $26,100. Expenses can be limited to the real estate taxes paid, which were between $5,422.80 for 2019 and $12,908.57 for 2020. Using the cap rate between 5.5 and 8.5%, that indicates a value of between $155,000 and $375,950. I'm here to answer any questions.
Sure.
that you may have.
Let me make sure I've got everything straight here. The assessor's office for 2020 valued the property at $877,600?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And the Board of Review upheld that value, is that correct?
Now, the Board of Review, actually, when you say the assessor's office, the assessor's appraiser valued it at, for 2020, at $408,900. The assessor came back and overrode his appraiser's value and put $877.
Okay, so, but the assessor's office value for 2020 was $877,600.
Right. Then the Board of Review came back at $435,000, which is Exhibit 3 in my package. I'm not sure.
And they use the cap rate of 6. 6%. That's what, doing the math, that's what it comes to.
But I'm not sure how the assessor then, I don't know what the process is totally, and if the assessor just went in and overrode that value from the Board of Review and.
Well, let me say, we have a letter here dated October 16th of 2019. It says the assessor's value is $877,600, and that the Board of Review made no change and left it at $877,600. So I don't know if the representative of the Board of Review may have made a recommendation to the Board of Review, but it appears that the Board of Review, if he did make a recommendation like that, the Board of Review did not accept it, and the Board of Review maintained the assessor's value of $877,600.
What is the date on that?
October of 2019.
Well, on Exhibit 3 of October 16th of 2019.
October 16, 2019, assessor certified assessment is $87,760.
Yeah, I see the,
I've got,
I see what you're
what I've got
talking
here
about.
says $877,600. And I've got this other document here.
This is more review documentation. That's what it's referring to. It does show.
Well, I'm showing $877,600 on this document. Oh. Okay. October 16th, 2020, which would be for the 2021 roll, am I correct?
Yes.
Is that correct? The Board of Review certified $475,000 as the value. But the value for 2020 was $877,600.
But this board review letter I have dated October 16, 2019, for $435,000.
Well, I've got, yeah, okay. Well, we've got same date on the letter, with different numbers.
I think different years.
No?
Two different years.
One's 2019 and one's 2020.
I've got that, but I've got October 16, 2019, $877,600. October 16, 2019, $435,000. And then for 2021, $475,000. So we got all sorts of different numbers floating around. I don't know which one's correct. Mrs. Halmers, do you have any,
So our, took a look at our,
you need to go to the microphone, please? Come on, Denise, nurse, and don't get nervous, you're gonna get relief.
I just took
I'm just trying to get this straight, that's all.
I just took a look at our website, and our website shows that the value is the 877,600 with the assessed value of 887,760 with a BOR 20 no change on it. So the values that were certified to us by the Board of Review was 87,760, which equates to a market value of 877,600. The assessor's office would not override a Board of Review recommendation. We would be in violation of state law if we did. So that was the number given to us by the Board of Review, which was then passed on to the tax commission. I'm not sure what letter the taxpayer has from the Board of Review, but I do know that the 2021 valuation was lowered by the current Board of Review, by Mr. Chris Baker.
Oh, well, what I'm saying is I've got a letter dated October 16, 2019,
The only thing I can see is that
for a value of $877,600, and Exhibit 3, October 16, 2019, $435,000.
I see that, and I'm looking at this here. I do know that we've had a number of issues with the Board of Review. I can't definitively tell you what's going on with the Board of Review, But as far as I know, our office would only certify numbers given to us by the Board of Review. It did have issues where they sent out incorrect letters, where they sent out letters, they did not send out letters at all. I really would hate to speculate and see what's going on, but like I said, we don't have the authority to override the Board of Review's official numbers that they gave us. Now, if they sent out an incorrect letter or they sent out something to the taxpayer, that's an issue, but that's not anything that our office can address, unfortunately.
And the assessor's office is, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but the assessor's office is still sticking to the $877,600 value?
Yes, sir. That's equates to like $25 uniform value with the rest of the surrounding area.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay. Mr. Dino, number one, I think that the $26,100 a year rent payment doesn't justify an $877,000 fair market value. I think if the property was unencumbered with that lease, then I would assume that $25 a square foot would be a fair value. I'm just assuming that, but certainly that value is far in excess of what I think, if you were to market that lease and try to sell it, I don't think you can get $800,000 for it. I wish you could, but I don't think a smart investor would pay that kind of money for it. I went ahead and ran some numbers based upon the lease pay, the annual lease payments and the future value of the land, and included in my cap rate a factor for the property taxes. And I came up with a value of $551,000, which is about $15.70 a square foot. You could also look at it a little bit differently and come up with a value a little bit lower than that of about $506,000. And that's using a present valuation of the income stream and taking into account the effective tax rate, which would be applied to the property. I don't know what methodology was used to determine the number that the Board of Review came up with. I don't know how he did it. I determined that 475,000.
435.
435.
2020, 475, 2021.
Yeah, okay, I don't know.
That equates to a capitalization rate of 6%. Which
We had 6% plus 1 point, well, it's actually a capitalization rate of, I don't have it here. 7.4538% is what it comes out to. 6% plus the property, plus allowed for property taxes.
I think they were using that single year rent, whereas his general calculation takes it over the term of the lease, including the additional option period, over to 2038, discounting it down, but also adding a little bit of depreciation to the land each year too. It's kind of a mitigating offset, so probably why that value is going to be a little higher. Which from an investor standpoint, that's probably how they're going to look at it. Come up with real value.
Do we have, I know you had asked me, looking at a value of, looking at the value that that one document shows in the Board of Review. Do we have any idea how you came up with that number? How you calculated that number?
My guess is you used to
It's something, yeah.
And it was similar to what the Orleans assessor's appraiser did, because he came up with $408,900 for 2020 taxes. And then pretty doggone close.
Yeah, except we don't know what they did, that's how they calculated it.
I think the only variable in new calculations is 2% versus the 1%.
Yeah.
Land appreciation.
And I mean, I can live with the 1%
Yeah.
calculation.
Yeah, I think that gets a little closer to the board review and what they came up with. I guess, according to the documentation I see, for some reason, the assessor didn't get that memo, but
Well, I do have some notes from the Orleans Parish assessor, if that would help.
when you said the assessor's appraisal went out and appraised the property, did you request that from the assessor to send an appraiser out to take a look at it? You mentioned that the Orleans Parish assessor appraiser came up with $408,900.
Right.
Did you see that appraisal, or did they?
I sat down and spoke with the appraiser in his office and reviewed. I think what happened.
That wasn't a board of review meeting, that was at the assessor's office?
Correct. This is before the board of review got involved. I think what happened was we were noticed that the assessment was going to start.
Yeah.
So I called the assessor's
Okay.
office, met with his appraiser,
Okay.
who came back with that value.
And did he take into consideration the low lease?
Yes.
Annual lease payment, yes, okay.
Because I don't think anybody would have to.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like the methodology that, Chairman, that you came up with, of using the 1%, which puts that value around 506,000. I mean, that takes into consideration the entire remaining years on the lease, assuming that option, that additional option is going to kick in too. You know, I wouldn't see any reason why they wouldn't renew it.
And when we say it takes in the consideration for the remainder of the lease, am I going to have this battle every year? Is the assessor going to say, so if that's the case, we don't need to take in that.
You may have to appeal this every year.
Yeah, so we don't need to take in that consideration.
Well, I think it's only the fairest way to come up with a true fair market value based on a certain cap rate. That to me is how you value that piece of ground, because it's encumbered by that particular lease, which is below fair market value at this point in time. You know, so I think we have to look at it for the duration. So I mean, if I were the assessor, I would probably follow this principle and use this as a basis for the remaining of the term of the lease. But, you know, what they try to do is uniformity in the city of New Orleans, where they look at a particular area of New Orleans and say, okay, based on overall comps and sales, they put a price per square foot. But in your situation, this has been covered by a long-term lease, which has brought the valuation down, you know, from a third-party review standpoint. It's just they're sticking with uniformity as far as in that particular neighborhood or area to come up with their per square foot. I don't know if that answers your question.
And I appreciate any help y'all give us, but I'm just curious why the board of review, but the assessors appraiser and the board of reviews appraiser.
I mean, that's the problem, I guess. You know, if y'all attend these hearings, probably what you need to do is gather your evidence from these hearings and get some type of copy of their calculations or what they use as a basis for your presentation here. I mean, all we have is a number, but we have no evidence to support how you arrived or how they arrived at that calculation. So we don't get any material from the board of reviews here.
Well, according to my conversation with the assessor's appraiser, these notes that I have, so the assessment will be $408,900 based on using $26,100 rent minus 5% expenses and a 6% cap rate.
But obviously they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, I think we're probably looking at a value, probably 500, 6,000 on my calculations, based on different ranges. Let's go ahead and hear from the assessor's office and see what they have to say.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So our office revalued this property, or Mr. Keith Levine from our office revalued this property, as he's our land appraiser. We did, as the Commissioner Wagaspack said, we took land sales and valued everything at a uniform $25 per square foot in this area. I recognize that the property is encumbered by a long-term lease to 2038. We were trying to maintain the uniformity, but I do acknowledge that a long-term lease would have a encumbrance of the property itself. As far as the board review, I can't really answer anything of the board review because I'm not with the board review. I'm not privy to their internal discussions. I will say that the consultant hired by the board review can tell a taxpayer anything that they want to say, but ultimately the city council, which is the board review, can override their consultants, just as the assessor can override any of his staff. As I'm on the staff, if I tell you it's worth $200,000, and the assessor says it's worth $4, he can override me because he's actually in charge. So we actually don't have final authority. I don't know if that clears anything up for you.
You know, my only concern is, look, I understand the procedure, and look, I spent my 34 years, that's basically what we did. I mean, you take the best information you have, and you make a value based on the best information you have. But, you know, it just seems to me that when a property owner comes in and says, hey, wait a minute, I don't fit in this neat little box. I've got this long-term lease, which is a very low lease. It's not market. It doesn't justify $25 a square foot. That, you know, the assessor's office ought to take a second look at it. I mean, it just seems to me that's the way it ought to be done.
Sure.
You may or may not be able to reach an agreement, but certainly at $26,000, $26,100 a year in land rent to sustain, you know, a property tax bill based on $800,000 of value. I mean, that's gonna, what is that gonna be, half of your rent?
$13,000.
Yeah, so it's $13,000, half the rent's $13,000. So, you know, and that doesn't make sense. So, you know, 50% of your rent would be going to just the property tax. The whole rent for the whole year, half of it's going to property tax. It just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense.
I understand. I'm with there being a long-term encumbrance, I do recognize as an appraiser it would have detrimental effect to the property. I don't do land.
I understand.
So are y'all okay with the $475,000 that they came up with the board review?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know.
It shows the assessed land value of $47,500 in the assessor system right now.
Well, the assessed value for the 21 is what came back from the board review. So we just updated everything that the board review gave us and then forwarded that on to the tax commission to certify our rolls. I don't know if we have appealed that for 2021 to the tax commission. I'll have to go and check.
Would you typically, okay, you answered the question. So you update this even though you still may have an appeal process?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice to know that, because I certainly hate to clip them, but you know, $25,000, $30,000 for 2020 when y'all are okay with $475,000 for 2021.
Yeah. I understand. don't really know if we have appealed it as of yet. I haven't received word
Still
from.
gonna have about a $6,000 tax bill and a $26,000 income stream.
I can check if it's been appealed.
I'm sorry,
I can run the check and see if it's been appealed.
to see if it's been appealed for
Our
2021.
office appealed it.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Can you go do that? Let's take a brief,
I believe they did appeal.
Okay.
yeah, let's take just a quick break. Everybody can stay seated. Right, just keep it, we'll be quiet for a few minutes till Ms. Malvo gets back.
The assessor's office did appeal the board of review's decision for tax year 2021.
They did, okay, all right. All right, well, the assessor's office did appeal the valuation for 2021 from the board, that the board of review determined, so we have that value. That value will be contested later on. All right. Let's hear from Mr. Calmer. Do you have anything else you want to add at this point?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Gillespie, are you going to represent the,
Mark Gillespie on behalf of George Wallace, LTC appraiser. Mr. Wallace appraised the underlying land is still vacant due to the improvement being owned by others. Using three market sales, arrived at a value of $25 a square foot. Total market value $877,550.
we've been having this discussion about the lease and what appears to be a very low land rent on the lease. I mean, should that affect the value of the property?
Well, I spoke with Mr. Wallace yesterday afternoon, and apparently either he wasn't aware of the lease prior to the appraisal, but he indicated that the lease was favorable to the owner. It's not market lease, it's high, as we all discussed earlier. And he said that certainly would be factored in if he were to do it again.
Yeah, if he had this information
Yes, sir.
at the time.
Yeah.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. Well, does anybody else have any comments they want to make? If we do a net present value on the income stream, and assume a land value increase over time of about 1% a year, that would give us a value of $506,000. We also have that value out there that the assessor's office is appealing for 2021, but that was what, 475,000, I think. So, do we have any discussion, or would you like me to make a motion based on the $506,000? Everybody okay okay with that?
I'm comfortable with all this.
Okay. All right, well, I'm gonna make the motion that in the matter in the appeal of Devage LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22172-047, I move that we fix the land value at $506,000.
Second?
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson? Chairman Short?
Yes. All right. So, we've lowered the $877,000 plus down to $506,000. The assessor's office did appeal the Board of Review's 2021 value. So unless you all can work something out, we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope this helps out.
Yeah, any relief helps.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Russ, if you all can try to get together, or the appropriate person in the office, try to get together with Mr. Dino and see if y'all can work something out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I will now take up item C on the agenda on the docket this morning. The appeal of Mount Olivet Incorporated versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22173-225. I'll ask, we have to swear in the parties.
Yeah, if you're going to testify, please raise your right hand. We don't swear lawyers in, it's not necessary. You can testify today, you solemnly swear that what you're going to testify to is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Right? Anybody else? You are, you've been sworn in. Right.
One moment. All right, this is the appeal of Mount Olivet. It's a taxpayer appeal, so I'm going to ask a representative from Mount Olivet to come up to the microphone. And if you would please state your name for the record and talk as close to the microphone as you can, and try to talk louder than you normally talk, just because the face covering tends to muffle the voice.
Sure thing. My name is Matthew Kvetchka. I work for parent company Mount Olivet at Sea Cemeteries of Louisiana.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us about the property.
Sure. So I guess the valuation issue at hand today is the unsold crypts that are present at Mount Olivet. I think the main, disparity is just the approach to valuation of these mausoleum crypts. We take the approach similar to a home builder with lots that they develop using a discounted cash flow method. We essentially project future income to discount that back to present value. So we take what the mausoleum crypts typically sell for, how many sales per year that we typically, sell, and then we apply an expense ratio, and again, we discount that income to indicate a current market value. I think the assessor is using some cost information that was provided by the previous owner, Stewart Enterprises. Again, I guess when they use the cost information, there's no depreciation of the improvements involved. And we also don't feel like the cost approach is really the appropriate method. We think, we sell these things just like a lot, like I was saying, like a builder would. So we take the income, and again, we discount that back to current value.
Can you walk us through your methodology as far as how you came up with the value? What is the value that you're asking for?
Our current asking value is $1.1 million. We did reach out to the assessor in hopes of settling prior to today's hearing at $1.375 million. and I think the assessor is roughly at 2.6 million, somewhere right there. But essentially, we look at prior year sales, what the units actually sell for. We take a
Excuse me 1 second. According to our briefing sheet, the assessors had a total value of roughly $11.5 million.
There
Is
was
that
an
correct?
offer of settlement roughly at 2.6 million.
Okay, well, an offer of settlement doesn't really.
Is that set value or
Market value.
Market value?
Yeah, all right, well, we've got a value, according to our briefing sheet, the assessor's office is about $11.5 million plus. Your request was 1.1 million?
Correct.
Okay.
The latest correspondence that we had was the assessor was using our cost information from the previous owner to build these new mausoleum units, and it averaged out to about $1,000.
Excuse me, how much?
About $1,000 per unit. And then they applied that to the unsold inventory, so that came out to the 2.6 million. That was the correspondence.
Well,
that we
I'm
had.
looking at, this is page 3. Of this document that you submitted. That's really what I'd like you to walk us through, where you come up with a value, to come up with your $1.1 million value.
Sure, absolutely. So currently, the year-end inventory, unsold inventory, is roughly 2650 mausoleum crypts. Annual sales average about 490 units per year. We did look at the prior 4 years of sales to get that average. We estimated or projected a sales growth of 105%, meaning each year sales will increase by 5%. Average unit pricing is about $4,500 per crypt. Sales price growth is a little bit low, or steady at 102% or 2% each year. And then our expense ratio for this particular location is at 87.81%, and that does include an annual property tax, only because this property has historically been exempt from property taxes.
Are you all fighting the exemption? The lack of exemption?
If we need to, we might, but we are in agreement that we will value the unsold portion of the cemetery.
All right, where is your list of expenses?
The list of expenses, I'm not sure if we included that or not. But just like any other commercial property, typical expenses.
Well, I know, but we're trying to arrive at a value.
Sure.
So using expenses, which include the taxes, would be based upon a value that you're disputing, or could be disputing. So normally in our world, we would not include the property taxes. We would increase the cap rate by whatever that effective property tax rate is. So, for example, the going-in rate was 6%, and the effective tax rate was, 1.5%. We would use an overall cap rate of 7.5%.
Sure, and we, since it's a percentage, we pretty much just included that in the overall expenses as well. So we did use a 12 cap present value factor at 12%, only because this is a special use property. It's not your typical commercial property, so there's going to be higher risk for potential buyers if they were to buy this property.
It'd be nice to be able to have seen an income and expense statement. That would have been a big help.
One of the issues that we did run into with the income and expenses is done by the parent company. It's not broken out by location. So we felt that was not, I guess, relevant information.
It is relevant, but go ahead. Go ahead.
So we did, again, just kind of looking at the chart at the bottom, that is our discounted cash flow model. It's only going to sell out, it's only 5 years. Typically, our cemeteries have undeveloped acreage attached. This is pretty much an infill city lot. There's no more expansion room.
So you're saying at the end of 5 years, you'll be
Sold
done?
out.
Can't go any further?
Correct.
Okay.
That's why it's so short, and then again, that's probably why the value looks so low as well. So in the eyes of a potential buyer, they're going to look at what's my projected income based on the remaining inventory, and only see there's only 5 years left. That's not really a good deal for anybody. So again, we took the income based on the remaining unsold inventory, applied our expense ratio, discounted that income, sum total 5-year indicated income, and that arrives at the $1.1 million market value.
What do these units cost to construct?
In 2013, when these were built, we built 4,600 units and they cost $4.7 million.
Say that again?
$4.7 million for roughly 4,600 units.
So they cost about $1,000 a piece, is that?
Correct.
So you're saying that at the end of 5 years, there'll be no, I mean, obviously actual, you might get to year 3 or 4 and project beyond that, but I mean, right now your valuation is that after 5 years, there'll be no inventory left, just maintenance.
Just maintenance.
Maintenance of the property.
The cemetery trust fund will kick in to maintain the property.
And my only concern is the expense ratio, which we don't have a breakdown of, so.
Sure, and I apologize again, it's more for the legal entity, and we did have our in-house attorneys review it, and they decided that we should not submit that information. But I am under oath, and this information is true, correct, to the best of my knowledge.
Pardon me?
I am under oath, and this information is
Yeah,
true.
no, I'm not saying you're not telling the truth, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it'd be nice to have an income and expense breakdown, is all I'm saying.
I understand.
So was it the in-house lawyers that said don't provide it? Were there any in-house accountants that were involved in the decision?
The accountants, no ma'am.
Just give me 1 second.
When did y'all acquire the property?
We acquired the property in, I think, December of 2013. Stewart Enterprises was the prior previous owner.
Y'all owned it in 2008.
We did, yes, sir.
I noticed the assessor had the total valuation at $1,447,700. In
Yes, sir.
2019. And then we jumped to $11,526,700. Quite a leap.
The previous year, this appeal was actually 100% exempt. It was not taxed.
Oh, okay, I explained it.
There are 2,868 total crypts in the mausoleum, is that correct? Or does that sound correct?
No, I think, are you referring to the appraisal that was
Yeah, I'm
submitted?
referring to the appraisal that was done by our staff.
Yeah, that's a little bit off. It's actually 2,650 mausoleum crypts that are available. I think there's like 18 niches, but we just included them all as crypts.
And then when you say niches, what?
Niches are typically 1-by-1 squares for an urn to be
Oh,
made of
okay. Okay, I was wondering what that was, so. Okay. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Any more questions at this point?
Again, what is your request on that?
We submitted 1.1 million, but like I said, we did.
But you said you were in settlement?
We did reach out to the assessor's attorneys and offer $1 million for $375,000.
And their response was what again?
He did not get a response.
No response.
You said 1,355,000?
375?
375.
Yes, sir.
And do you know how the assessor came up with 11 million? If you've had some conversation and they...
Based on, well, it's kind of an interesting story because they, apparently from what we were told when we met with Mr. Williams, that he just taxed the entire complex, if you will, all of the entire inventory. He also put that inventory on the personal property roll to get our attention. So the personal property aspect of it has been settled, has been removed from the roll, but here we are today valuing the unsold piece. But I think the assessor, I could be wrong, valued all of the total, I don't remember how many total are the entire property, essentially. Sold and unsold.
It did get your attention.
It did. That's why we're here today.
Okay.
I think the tax files are one of the crips in the ground.
And if you see us looking like we're playing on our cell phones have calculators. So that's what we're doing. Okay.
Not a problem.
All right, well, let's hear from the assessor's office and Mr. Alvarez, and see what this says. Is this someone else? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, whoever. Go ahead.
Good morning, my name is John Weiler, and I represent the assessor in this matter. I think it's important to keep in mind that what is before you today is a correctness challenge, not a legality challenge. The taxpayer had asserted a legality challenge, but it decided to drop the matter, and so all that's left is a correctness challenge. So the issue that's presented before the commission is the fair market value of the unsold crib spaces. Now, there's always some confusion with crib spaces, because we're talking about cribs, so we're talking about burial spaces per crib. And what the taxpayer is talking about is burial spaces per crib. You can have two burial spaces in one crib. Now, the taxpayer presents a discounted cash flow analysis to value the unsold crib spaces. He has prepared this himself internally. No third party has reviewed any documentation. In fact, no documentation has been presented to support on the expense side. On the sales side, yes. They're selling these scripts for $4,500. That's reflected, but expenses are reflected of 87.81% of projected sales revenue. Again, no explanation is provided how this is arrived at. Does it include overall operating expenses? Does it include grass cutting? Does it include maintenance? Does it include taxes? Now, if operating expenses of 60% were assumed, which is a reasonable amount, then the whole numbers would look, of course, differently. At 87.81%, the net operating income that is capitalized is $268,790. At 60% of expenses, all of a sudden the net income to be capitalized increases to $882,000. So in other words, the income to be capitalized now all of a sudden is 3 times what is projected by them. Now, as was indicated, taxpayer asked for fair market value of unsold cribs at $1,100,000. This translates into a fair market value of $408 per crib. Yet, of course, taxpayer freely admits they are selling, have sold, and will continue to sell cribs at $4,500, 10 times what they're saying is fair market value. Now, the project was built in 2013 for total construction cost of $4,925,600, about $5 million. There were 4,642 crib spaces built. that is a crib space cost of about $1,000 per crib space. Now, remember, the taxpayer is trying to sell the crib spaces and is selling them for $4,500. Now, if you translate the $4,500 times the unsold crib spaces, this is how you come up with $11 million. 4,500 per crib space times the unsold crib spaces, and you come up with the $11,925,000.
How many spaces are you multiplying by 4,500?
We're multiplying it times 2,650, which is the burial spaces that are available for sale.
2,650.
2,650.
And that gives you how much of a value? That's your 11 million?
That comes around 11 million. There's adjustments, but we're in the $11 million range.
What about expenses or cost figures inside of that
Well, that's the
$4,500?
sales approach. The assessor also used the cost approach to determine value. He took the construction cost, $4,925,000, and divided it by the burial bricks built to come out, this is what you were doing earlier, 1,060 per burial space. And then he took the
So $1,060?
$1,061 per unsold burial space. So then he multiplied the 1,061 by the 2,868 unsold crib spaces to come up with a value of $3,042,948. Now, the tax commission appraiser, Ms. Levette, also used the cost method to establish the fair market value. She used tables promulgated by Marshall and Swift. She relied on the inventory sheet, which was given to her for the subject property by the taxpayer, and confirmed that there were 2,868 unsold in 88 niches. And so she calculated the cost at $2,040 per burial space. So when you multiplied that out, she obtained a fair market value of $5,850,720. And to this she added 14,000 niche spaces, 14,600 value for 88 niche spaces. So she arrived at a total fair market value of $5,865,328 for the unsold crib spaces. Then to that she added land, which there seems to be no dispute about, $733,100. So she obtained a total fair market value of $6,598,100. So the assessor used the cost method. The tax commission appraiser used the cost method. And we would encourage this commission to adopt the cost method used by its appraiser and find that the total value for the unsold crib spaces is some $6,598,100. And so I would move that the various documentation that had been previously submitted by the assessor be introduced into evidence together with Ms. Levette's appraisal and made part of the record.
So you're asking us to adopt our tax commission staff appraiser's value,
Yes.
$6,598,100.
I think that's a reasonable compromise under the circumstances. The assessor, of course, wanted 11 million, taxpayer wants 1 million, which I think is a totally unreasonable number. So I think it makes sense to go with the tax commission's appraisal number.
Okay. All right, do you have any questions? Anybody?
I would like to ask a question. What's the difference between, and maybe I should ask and I will ask the appraiser this as well, the difference between this space that you're gonna rest eternally and a residential lot that don't have a house built on
Well, of course, there are all sorts of different regulations that apply to burial spaces versus residential lot.
it. I'm talking about I'm trying to come up with a value.
Well,
And I know we're on new ground here, but, I would like to know the difference.
this kind of cash flow method, it's my appreciation, is typically employed in value real estate. You're taking current income, which you expect to receive in the future, and then putting a value on it. Well, there's no income here you're receiving except sale of the underlying asset. It's not like real estate apartment complex where I'm
So
receiving rent.
you develop a graveyard, you develop a space. You take a piece of raw land and you convert it into something to be used, different than what it was used for before. And you have an identified lot. Now, of course, with a graveyard, you gotta have a trust set up to maintain it for a lengthy period of time, which is a little different than a residential lot. And the reason I'm asking the question, I've been on the commission for a while. Years ago, there was an appeal, it was dealing with English term, which is, in that area. And they had residential lots that had been there forever, a long time. That was appealed and went back and looked at the original cost. And, that, and our legal counsel is here, he may help me out with it, but later on, and I developed residential subdivisions. And I sit down with the tax assessor in Bradford Parish and determine the value based on cost. And there've been other appeals, the same thing happens. And I'm trying to differentiate in my mind, this particular issue with that scenario.
Well, I'll let maybe our appraiser, Russell, address that. If he has any comments.
So just a quick answer would be, the difference would be, one is a developed parcel of land, the other is a residential lot.
A residential lot would probably have more development into it than a funeral. I mean, a graveyard.
A vacant residential lot is a vacant
You gotta
residential.
put in sewer, you gotta put in streets, you gotta put in sidewalks, you gotta put in lift stations, you got all kinds of things you gotta put in. And all of that goes into the cost of that 150 lots. That becomes your cost. And, of course, we don't get no 400% markup. That's the biggest difference that I see. But the same exact scenario exists. Same circumstances exist.
Well, remember, we're talking about a mausoleum here.
Yeah.
Y'all get the burying in the ground in Alexandria.
Yeah.
You gotta put them above ground and will float away.
There's gonna be hardly any,
A little concrete rebar and.
Yeah, but it's the same principle.
Yeah,
But
but I like you, I think it's, a lot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
It's a lot.
development
That's
so it's a
costs.
lot in the air.
You look at your development costs of that particular ground.
Yeah. It's a lot that can be
And
extended.
the fair market value would kick in if by chance this problem with the market or the sale of these trips, and it starts to pull, the fair market value goes below the cost, then you get into a write-down situation, like you would do in a real estate development.
then you gotta go back to
Probably
the
would have
assessor.
units turned years ago.
That's exactly right.
Because they had built up 8, 9 feet up in the air in swampland, and then.
Couldn't even develop it now.
But the taxpayer is not disputing the fact that they're selling for $4,500. That's not in dispute, that's from their own records, their own projections, that's what they're selling for.
But your calculations had no expenses, correct? Like your calculation that came up to the 11 was just the
Just
raw
sales.
number of what it was sold.
The sales comparison approach, which is not going to include expenses in it. It's just whatever the fair market value, what properties are selling for. In this case, they're selling for $4,500 a square foot, so that was the comparables for each crib was $4,500. You wouldn't really do an expense unless you were doing the income approach to value.
And what was the income approach to value?
We did not perform an income approach to
I
value.
thought you said it was around 3 million or something? Did you not say that?
The cost approach the assessor did.
There's no income approach.
The appraisal for the
It
initial.
seems like everybody's looking, kind of now geared toward cost approach, which I think is definitely what we should look at in determining the value. That's what our appraiser looked at. The taxpayer's looking at it in a little different circumstance, but doing the same thing, just doing a different calculation. I don't know what the right number is. I'm just expressing some thoughts.
Sure.
Would there be depreciation allowed in this situation once we arrive at the cost approach? I mean, is there any, for the unsold cribs?
Well, remember, it's inventory. They're holding this as inventory for sale.
And that is a huge difference.
And it's not, that's all that's being held for is inventory. So it obviously has not depreciated, because if you look at the cost as found by your appraiser, if you look at the cost found by your appraiser, it is higher than the cost of construction. You really, as pointed out before, you're talking about a sort of a bare-bones building that's being constructed here, so there's really no deterioration.
And that's more of a question for our appraiser as it relates to Marshall and Swift, and maybe the table takes into account certain age factors.
And a difference also in my scenario, if you're a developer and you have your costs, I'm gonna go back to English term. When they developed that, cost of the lot was $45,000. They sold them for $145,000. Then all of a sudden the market crashed, you got all these lots in there. The developer assessed them assessing at $145,000 using, comparable sales. And hold on, no, our developer, my cost was actually $45,000. That's what the whole argument was about. Now, using my same scenario, in this circumstance, this owner is not the developer, as I appreciate it. Y'all purchased it, right?
Correct.
So there is a little different twist to that.
But the taxpayers telling you there's such demand that in 4 or 5 years, everything's going to be liquidated.
That is correct, but you're gonna have a stagnant market, it appears. People still gonna die.
They made a big point of that in their presentation. So you're looking at inventory that has value of $4,500 per unsold burial crypt space. That's typically 2 in one crypt.
This is very unique.
Do you have any more questions? All right, let's hear from Mr. Locke.
Thank you.
One of the more challenging assignments that I've received since I've been here. I want to make a correction before I go through two people have stated there are 22,650 available trips. There is a typographical error in my appraisal report that I did not notice until they pointed it out. But based on the inventory sheet that I received from the taxpayers, the number of available trips is 2,686 as of 2019.
2,686 crips.
Trips available. So that would change the fair market value, improvement value to $5,494,000.
That changes what number now?
The improvement value to $5,494,000. And then the total fair market value would then be $6,227,100.
Tell me that number again.
$6,227,100.
The difference is the land value, 733,100?
Yes, correct.
All right, so we're talking about 2,686 crips,
We are.
all told. What about these niches? Is that,
The niche is the number is correct. That's the number that 888 is what's listed in the inventory sheet as of 2019.
can you explain to us how you did your cost approach?
Sure. So let me just first say that I exhausted every resource possible to me. I contacted the Appraisal Institute, several MAI appraisers, IAAO to try and acquire as much information as possible about the best way to go about valuing this cemetery. It's a special use property. It requires very specialized knowledge. So I performed the appraisal report to the best of my ability with the information that was available to me, which was minimal. The Appraisal Institute was able to provide me with 2 documents regarding valuation of cemeteries. And scouring the internet, I was able to find one very helpful document that used cemeteries within California in order to determine valuation based on cost. Based on income. My research indicated that a discounted cash flow is the most efficient way to value a cemetery because, in fact, once all the crypts are gone, well, the value no longer remains the same. This is special use. We can't just resell it. You can't just dig up the cemetery and build on it. However, because it is owned by a corporation, the income statement was not itemized, and so I was not provided expenses, so therefore I could not perform a discounted cash flow for the subject property. Therefore, I used the cost approach. Marshall and Swift does not provide much information on how to value a cemetery, mausoleums specifically. There's tons of information on mortuaries, if it were a mortuary, depreciating value. But for the mausoleums, there is one page with 4 lines that indicate the value of crypts and niches based on condition, cost per one. It does not indicate that there would be any depreciation applied to it because they are unused. So, I used the numbers as given to me by Marshall and Swift, determined that this mausoleum is in average condition. It's not indoors. It's exterior. There's no air conditioning. There's no the dead need air conditioning. But that's what makes it excellent condition. So I valued an average condition. Marshall and Swift states that an average mausoleum is valued at $2,040 per crypt. And then an average niche is valued at $166. And those values combined give you the total number that I previously stated, which is $5,494,000 for the improvements, $733,100 on the land, for a total value of $6,227,100. In one of the documents provided, one of the 2 documents provided to me by the Appraisal Institute, It was a case study on a cemetery in Kansas. It's from 1989. It's probably not helpful. It stated that the assessor received an appraised value for the cemetery and then valued the cemetery at 40% of the total appraised value. There's no justification for why, but I just thought that I would mention that. That's the only reference that I was able to find regarding assessments in cemeteries.
So we're in agreement that the total number of crypts that are being evaluated is 2,686.
Based on the inventory sheet that was provided to me by the taxpayer.
Okay. And the 88 is correct.
And the 88 is correct.
And did you look at the original construction cost, was taking any of that into consideration, or it sounds like the only source was that one document?
Well,
I guess what bothers me is the construction cost is basically half of your assessment.
so the valuation of cemeteries and mortuaries states that doing like a full cost approach is really complicated on structures like these because they're intricate, they're very different in its to be able to cost this marble versus that granite versus this lighting, it is extremely complex, and so they advise against it, which is why I did not.
I would think it would be very difficult to build one for $1,000.
Oh, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. And if the value range for the mausoleum, the cost per crypt, in excellent condition, it's $4,400 per crypt, and in low is $1,400. So just so that you have an idea of the range.
That's good information.
And for the niches, it's $235 for excellent and $126 for low.
I think I'm gonna have my wife check on that niche for me.
We got a lot of allocated.
But no, that range helps, so that source document we use gives you a range, and so you're kind of,
The range was what again?
That's for Marshall and Swift.
between 1,400 and 4,400?
Yes.
And you're at 2,004?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Due to its average condition.
And you were at 2,040.
2040.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with that information, I'd like to ask the taxpayer a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to, but previously you had inquired about expenses, and this one document did have just a list of the type of expenses within a cemetery, so if you'd be interested in me listing that, I can, just, I don't know if you.
I don't think we're allowed to make that approach, It's really not a consistent income. It's not a consistent gross income. It's not.
No, it's not. It's not, which is why you have to do this kind of cash flow, but the same expense would apply, you know, right, setting, lighting, opening, closing, so forth. So anyway, if you need those, I can just, okay.
I just want to make sure you understand, what did you say the original cost of construct was?
It's just under $5 million, 4.975 million. I might have misspoken in my first.
Which was how much?
I think I said 4.75.
About 1,000 per.
About 1,000 per.
It was roughly 1,000 per crypt. Is the cost of construction.
And what type of trust fund is required for a cemetery of this nature? Or is there actually a requirement, or is it a state requirement?
For each, I guess, burial space that we sell, a percentage of the proceeds has to go into the terminal care fund, that's what it's called. That kicks in once the property is completely sold out.
And do you know what that percentage is?
I think roughly 10%-ish.
And you're in agreement with the 2,686?
2,686, I'm not sure where that number is from. My document shows 2,695. That includes niches though.
Okay.
I just value the niches the same as the bricks, just to keep it less complicated, to be honest. Obviously, the number might be a little bit lower if I value niches lower.
And tell me again where you come up with your requested value. Requested values was 1.1 billion?
Yes, sir.
That seemed awful low to me.
I understand. Again, kind of going back to your statement or questioning about residential lots, that's how we typically look at our cemetery properties. We do have a sale price, an average sale price. We have expenses related to the property itself, which is at 87.81%. And our expenses do run high just because we have to pretty much keep these properties in pristine shape. For obviously, we want families to come and enjoy it. We want to portray a positive image to buyers and to families. So we do have, there is quite a bit of upkeep. And like I said, the trust fund doesn't kick in until the property is sold out. So we are responsible for all of the repairs and maintenance of the property. We looked at the annual sales growth, how many contracts, if you will, we sold over the past few years, or how many spaces we sold. We included a slight sales price growth, and we just discounted that out. It's a 5-year sellout. This one, like I was saying before, is unique because there's no excess land available for us to expand or to develop. So once this location sells out, it's closed, it's done. Again, using those figures, the $4,500 per space, the expense ratio, discounting that back, that comes in at 1.1 million.
I don't think you would discount your inventory though, for maintenance and upkeep of the facility. The grass mowing, I mean, I think you would pay for that out of your profit on your annual sales.
Right, but we're discounting the future income.
You got a 400% markup. That's a little different.
I mean, in our eyes, cost doesn't equal value, so just because we spent this amount, doesn't mean it's worth that amount. So again, the addition of this location was on top of the existing structures. I don't know if that had anything to do with the cost itself, why it was so low, maybe it was high, I'm not quite sure. But we're not gonna spend $4,400 per crypt when we can only sell them for $4,500 per crypt. That's just general, I think it's business. That's just math. And kind of going back to your statement about residential lots as well, when we develop these cemeteries or this particular location, there is a cloud associated with each property. It's dedicated for cemetery use, for burial use. So that has to be taken into account into a future buyer, because I think the appraiser stated, we can't redevelop the cemetery into a hotel. It has to maintain the cemetery into perpetuity.
And you have a recorded plat.
Exactly.
I appreciate it.
And that's recorded.
Recorded and it designates each
Right.
burial.
So again, that kind of further, I guess, kind of goes with our valuation, that would be a discount on any other type of property, like a deed restriction or something like that, on any other property that was trying to be sold.
Once the sale price is set, $4,500, it doesn't change over the course of...
It does, yes, sir. They can negotiate that. Families can negotiate the price. We apply discounts. That's just the net average sale price that I saw over the past 3 or 4 years. So that's net of any discounts or anything like that.
Any other questions?
Just one other comment, Mr. Mott, I think you did a great job. I've never seen you nervous up there.
I
You
know.
seem to be a little nervous.
You have no idea the head wrapping that this appraisal provided me.
I look at these things all day, and they're definitely unique in every aspect of these properties. So it's a unique situation. So I totally understand.
Mr. Lott, your number, your revised number, just for my notes, is 6227100.
That's what I wrote down.
Okay, just want to verify.
I expect you have a motion.
Yes, sir, my motion on an appeal of Mount Olivet Inc. versus Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22173-225, is to A motion would be to accept the LTC staff appraisal report, the modified numbers being land $733,100, and improvements $5,494,000, for a total valuation of $6,227,100.
Second.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Commissioner Harden?
Yes. All right, the next item on the docket, item E, the appeal of Group Properties LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 19-22172-044.
Anybody who's going to testify today needs to be sworn in. Solemnly swear that the testimony you have to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Give us one moment. All right, you're here to testify on Group Properties?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't you come on over to the microphone and state your name for the record, and try to talk as close to the microphone as you can, and to talk a little bit louder than you normally do. The mask sometimes tends to muffle people's voices.
I got you.
So,
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
you sound great.
Sure. My name is Greg Sonier. I represent Root Properties. Root Properties owns the building at 2441 Orleans Avenue in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm here to talk to the tax commission. I'm sorry. I'm here to talk to the Louisiana Tax Commission in relation to this property as the representative. And I really kind of easy and simple, and I don't want to go into detail. This is the first time I have seen the appraisal of the property from the tax commission. So I kind of had to scan over it very quickly. I did look at the comps on the appraisal. A lot of these comps that were tabulated are kind of far away from 2441 Orleans Avenue. If you look at my exhibit where the colored piece of paper is, I guess you could say, with the lines on it, the gray area is 24. Does anybody have that? Okay.
Did you turn them into us, or did you turn them into the Board of Review?
I sent them to Jeff. He had told me that I could, instead of mailing them off, that I could email them to him. And he said that was fine. And I did get a response and said he received them and thanks very much, and he'll turn it over to the tax commissioner.
Jeff Crosby?
Crosby?
Jeff Crosby?
Yeah, Jeff Crosby, I'm sorry.
What is your request? Is it the 203,900?
Okay, so my request is 106, total value of 160,000. And kind of going over it real quick. So the property at 2441 Orleans sits on the corner of Orleans and North Rocheblave. A property that is less than 200 feet, and it's a commercial property as well. and it's the total square footage of the building that sits 200 feet away from me is around 3,000 feet, square feet. Root Properties at 2441 Orleans Avenue, about 2,000 square feet. The total value of the property that's about 230 feet away from Root Properties is 130,000. These are both commercial properties, very, very close to each other. And so I would like to be more in line with a commercial property that's about 200 feet away from me for the total value. If you average it out, it's about $35 per square foot for the property that's about 200 feet away from 2441 Orleans Avenue. My square footage price at 2441 Orleans Avenue is $100 a square foot. I do have other properties that are commercial, very similar businesses to mine, that are within, I want to say, 530 feet of the commercial property of Root Properties. Those all average, I want to say, about $60 per square foot in their building square foot price. So there again, I'm kind of, I want to say, a little bit higher than everybody else, or a lot higher than everybody else, and I'd like some sort of relief. And I can make copies, it's just one.
We're gonna check.
It's okay, okay.
Just bear with us for a few moments.
Sure, one other point if I could make. These properties that are all within 500 feet of whatever, of my property, were all very much affected by the drainage system in the city of New Orleans. Each one of these properties received damaged from the past, I want to say, 2 or 3 years of flooding. Most recently, Thanksgiving Eve, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, we all received floodwaters. So, I don't know about the properties that were comped in the appraisal done by the tax commission, whether they were affected by the floodwaters. But I do know within my little area, we were. And I think we will continue to be affected by any future floods.
How old is the building that you own? How old is this building?
This building was probably built in the 1940s. It was originally a commercial property, I think from the get-go, and it was kind of the typical store downstairs, family upstairs. When we acquired the property, the store is just downstairs and the upstairs in the attic. There is no livability on the upstairs. The property on the corner there again has a viable second floor that's 200 feet away from, or 200 feet away from us. So.
Our notes show that it was purchased 2017 for $264,000.
Correct.
But the flooding happened after that.
You are absolutely correct. In researching the property, I had went around the neighborhood to ask some of the neighbors, is this a flood area after Katrina? They said the only time it flooded was for Katrina. Yes, the area was devastated by the Katrina flood. After that, according to all the neighbors I talked to, there was no flooding.
Do you have the address again of the 3,000 square foot house?
It's, that address is 2401 Orleans Avenue. It's a brick building And currently, it is a food, I think the business operates as a food store. It is an operation. I do see customers frequent the business, so.
The photograph that we have shows a seafood and meat market, and then the other photograph shows it to be a restaurant.
Correct.
So is it a seafood market or a restaurant?
It's currently operating as a restaurant.
Okay. I'm trying to find the document that you sent, so that's what's holding us up.
The document's on its way.
What's that?
The document's on its way.
Okay.
Make a copy. Should be here. What's that? Yeah, go ahead.
If I can say one more thing.
Sure.
I want to thank Jeff Crosby, because the only reason why I'm here today is I received one phone call from him saying the last hearing was postponed because of the hurricane headed to New Orleans. That was the only contact I've had with the tax commission. And I know, I understand the COVID virus and all that, but I do want to thank him, and he was a very kind, nice gentleman. Thank you.
If you want to have a seat until we get the paperwork, you certainly can. I'm not telling you not to stand there. but-
Well, actually, I'm a chef, so I don't mind standing if you don't mind.
All right.
When I sit down, I kind of get hard to move around.
You didn't bring us lunch by any chance, huh?
I'm sorry?
I said you didn't bring us lunch by any chance, huh?
I can make it for you if you got a kitchen.
I think the ethics board may frown on that. Just give us a few moments.
No, that's fine.
Ms. Malvo, please make sure that you email us a copy of this document. Anybody have any questions?
Christian equity argument and certainly has provided data to support that. I checked online with the assessor's office on sitting here, and those amounts do check out. 2401 out of the voting side. See, for 2021, there's even been a COVID adjustment, reducing it below the 130 to 96,700.
And your request is 160?
Correct.
And what's the total value of that just improvements?
Total value.
Total value.
And where does the 160 come from?
Well, I kind of took, now obviously, if you want to say, gee, I should be at the 2401 price at least of total value of 130. It's a two-brick building, 2401, two-brick commercial building, and the square footage is a lot higher. Now, what I kind of base it on is maybe the other restaurants in the area and the liquor store. So that the 160 kind of falls in between the square footage price of the, I want to say the two restaurants and the liquor store on the corner, obviously, is kind of separated from all that.
Yeah, using about 75 a foot.
Yeah.
looks like the average price, the average value per square foot, on this, spreadsheet that you gave us, on the restaurants and the commercial store, comes out to about $72.55 a square foot for the building. So if I multiply that times the square footage of the building, which is 2,132 square feet, I come up with a building value of 154,600. Add the land in, 22,700. If my math is correct, I come up with a value of 177,300.
That's what I got.
Which is close to what you're asking for. It's not on the page.
I agree. I'm flexible.
Yeah. All right, well, this is strictly on an equity argument. Okay. All right, well, do you have anything else you want to add, or? Okay.
No,
If
that's
we have
it.
more questions for you, we certainly will,
Yeah.
we'll let you know.
That's fine.
Why don't you have a seat, and let's hear from the assessor's office.
Okay.
Commissioners, I really have nothing that, really too much to add, other than that, our valuation of the $237,000 is within the same ballpark of the actual sale price of the property. It sold for $264,000, and the appraised value of the tax commission staff appraiser at $215,000. I don't know the particulars of the evidence provided by the taxpayer. I've just received it a couple minutes ago, so I don't know if there's any condition issues that might offset why these properties may have a lower value per square foot than the subject property. So I can't really give you anything as far as what's going on with his accounts versus his subject property. I just wanted to reiterate that we're all kind of in the same, that same ballpark, what the property sold for, what the staff appraisal is, and what our current valuation is. And we asked the tax commission to set the value at staff's recommended value of $215,000.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Gillespie on behalf of George Wallace. George appraised the property using the income approach and the sales approach, and relying on the sales approach, and he arrived at a value of $90 a square foot for the improvement only, and added the land value of $22,700 for a total value of $215,000.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do we, have any ideas? Do we have a motion? Like I said, I looked at the exhibit that was provided by the taxpayer and came up with that value of $177,300, typically based on an equity argument.
I'd be inclined to agree with that based on the equity argument presented.
Good.
Ready for a motion? All right, I can go ahead and do it. Please correct me if my math is stated incorrectly. In the matter of the appeal of Root Properties LLC versus the Ollie's Parish Florida Review, docket number 19-22172-044, based on an equity argument presented by the taxpayer, I move to fix the land value at $22,700, the improvement value at $154,600, for a total value of $177,300.
Commissioner Bircher?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Sharp?
Yes. That's
Dave?
That's it, yeah.
Thank you.
We lowered the value to 177,300.
Thank you.
All righty. All right.
Please, the commission, the assessor's office would like to formally withdraw our appeal for item number I, docket 22173-212.
Which one is that?
That is Earl Williams versus Mission Boulevard.
I'm just gonna get it. Oh, my page is sticking together, I'm doing good. So if you withdraw the appeal, you're going with the Board of Reviews review 510,600?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The building had been removed. We
Yes.
have had our initial valuation.
Right. All right, so it's going to be a land only
Yes, sir.
property. All right. So you're withdrawing item I, which ends in 173212.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any objection to withdrawal? I don't think we need a motion or anything to do that. Okay. All right, it's withdrawn. All right, so I suppose we'll just go back to the top of the docket. All right, the first item on the docket, the appeal of 4040 Tulane Avenue LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22171-032. Give me one moment. All right. Before we begin on this appeal, we received last night an email from the taxpayer with some exhibits that they wish to have introduced at today's hearing. Section 3103D4 of our rules requires that all evidence being submitted by the party who filed the appeal, which here is the taxpayer, must be filed at least 15 days prior to the scheduled hearing date. Further, the scheduling letter notifying the parties of this appeal also indicates that all evidence being submitted by the party who filed the appeal must be filed at least 15 days prior to the scheduled hearing date. For this appeal, that deadline was November 17th. Taxpayers' exhibits were submitted last night, well after the 15-day deadline. This late filing prevents the assessor from having an opportunity to review and respond to the exhibits, and further prevents this commission from having an opportunity to review and analyze the taxpayers' exhibits. Therefore, the commission will not consider the taxpayer exhibits, and those exhibits will not be made part of our record. Do we need to do this in the form of a motion, or is this sufficient?
That's sufficient.
Is this sufficient? All right, so the exhibits that were submitted last night by this taxpayer at 4040 Tulane Avenue will not be part of the record and will not be considered by the commission. All right. No one here today on behalf of the taxpayer, and so now let's go ahead.
The assessor's office has no objection to the staff's appraisal value.
Okay, thank you.
I appraise the subject property using the income approach to value, based on financials provided by the taxpayer. Determines the fair market value of $12,090,000 with $5,676,500 attributed to the land, to the improvements, and $6,413,500 attributed to the land.
Do you have any questions? We have a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion in the matter of docket number 1922-1711032. I would move that we set the 2020 fair market value at the LTC staff appraisal. Land, $6,413,500. Improvements, $5,676,500, for a total fair market value of $12,090,000.
Commissioner Burcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Sharp?
Yes. Item B on the docket today was settled. We'll move on to item D on the docket, the appeal of KBY LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 19-22171-015. No one here this morning on behalf of the property owner. So we'll hear from the assessor's office.
The assessor's office has no rejection to staff's appraisal. It's within 10% of our initial valuation.
Go ahead.
I appraise the subject property utilizing both the income approach to value and cost approach to value. Determine the fair market value of $1,636,000, with $154,900 attributed to the land and $1,481,100 attributed to the improvements.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez, you said you had no objection to the staff appraisal? Okay, thank you. We have a motion?
Chairman?
Yes.
I move on docket number 19-22171-015, that the 2020 fair market value be set at the LTC staff appraisal, land, $154,900, improvement, $1,481,100, for a total fair market value of $1,636,000.
Second.
Commissioner Burcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
And Chairman Sharp?
Yes. Next is item G on the docket, the appeal of David P. Giordano versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 19-22173-005. No one is here on behalf of the taxpayer this morning. I guess this afternoon at this point. So let's go ahead and hear from the assessor's office.
The assessor's office has no objection to staff's value.
Go ahead.
This is 005, correct?
Yes.
I appraise the subject property, determined the fair market value of $870,000, with $510,500 attributed to the land and $359,500 attributed to the improvements.
Any questions? We have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move on docket 19-22173-005, that we accept the LTC staff appraisal, set land value at $510,500, improvement value $359,500, for a total value of $870,000.
Second.
Commissioner Burcher?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Sharp?
Yes. Item H, the appeal of Charles J. Hazuri III versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 19-22173-195. No one here on behalf of the taxpayer. I will hear from the assessor's office.
And note that the taxpayer did accept the LTC appraisal value.
Okay. Mr. Alvarez?
The assessor's office doesn't have an objection to staff's value. However, just to note that the Board Review's evaluation and the staff's recommendation is $300 difference. We ask you to uphold the BOR's value.
I understand.
I appraised the subject property, determined a fair market value of $347,000 with $187,300 attributed to the land and $159,700 attributed to the improvement.
All right, thank you. All right, I guess we had a $300 difference. We should uphold the board review. Does everybody agree with that?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, I'll go ahead and make the motion. In the matter of Charles J. Hazuri III versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22173-195. I move to fix the land value at $187,300, improvements at $160,000, for a total value of $347,300.
Second.
Commissioner Berger?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Sharp?
Yes. All right. One moment. All right, the next item on the agenda, J, the appeal of Ferret LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 19-22176-049. We had no one here on behalf of the property owner. However, the property owner has, the representative has agreed to the tax commission staff appraisal. Ms. Alvarez, go ahead.
The assessor's office initially valued the property at $1,199,200, which was upheld by the BOR. I took a look at the staff's appraisal, and I think it's a little bit slightly lower than on the low side. I was not given any documentation about the taxpayer to come up with a valuation. However, I performed the pro forma income approach, and our valuation using the pro forma was $985,200. This is a newer constructed property. It's not brand new, but it is newer. It's a few years old.
What was the value you came up with?
Oh, $985,200.
Okay.
Kind of sort of in the middle between the BOR's value and the staff's value. Like I said, I didn't have access to any of their documentation or income stream or any exhibits by the taxpayer, so I just had to go with what we had, and that pro forma was it.
Thank you.
Mark Gillespie on behalf of Mark Gillespie. I did appraise the
Ask
property.
Mr. Gillespie to please come next time.
Yes, sir. I did appraise the property located at 3001 Napoleon Avenue. It's a commercial entity on the corner in a fairly good location. It's fairly new. I used the income approach without any data, all market, no data provided from the taxpayer. And I used and I came up with a value in the market approach of $864,000. I did the cost approach as well with minimal depreciation and arrived at a total value of $850,000. And I would like to note that using the cost approach without any depreciation, the value, including the addition, adding in the land value, would be $857,545. So, and also too, yeah, I did this as well. I took all of the 100% occupancy with no operating expenses and the income approach, and came up with a value of $1,137,000, which is not realistic, but just to show what it would be without any expenses at all.
So your final value
It's
is?
$850,000.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Do you have a motion?
Chairman, on appeal of Perret LLC versus Louisiana Parish Board of Review, document 19-22176-049. The motion would be to accept the LTC staff appraisal, setting the land at $316,700. The improvements at $533,300 for a total valuation of $850,000.
Second?
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
Chairman Shawardi?
Yes. The remaining items on the docket, items K through O, have either been withdrawn, settled, or continued, so we will not be hearing those items today. The Tax Commission hereby accepts all pre-filed documents and oral testimony into the record as Taxpayer Exhibit 1 in Globo, Assessor Exhibit 1 in Globo, and Louisiana Tax Commission Staff Appraiser Exhibit 1 in Globo for each appeal hearing conducted today, respectively. I believe that concludes the docket for today, and we did not miss anything, am I correct?
That's correct.
All right, well, nothing else to come before the commission at this time. I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Commissioner Archer?
Yes.
Commissioner Wagstaff?
Yes.
Commissioner Wood?
Yes.
Commissioner Jeffers?
Yes.
And Chairman Shawardi?
Yes.